Hello, my name is Faith Kristen Hope, and I'm here to tell you the story of Frisk, the single cluster of digital data that changed my life forever. I had just completed the National Dex on Omega Ruby and had obtained the Shiny Charm when I decided I wanted to shiny hunt something. But as I mulled over what Pokemon I wanted to hunt, I decided I wanted to attempt the Masuda method on my beloved Noivern, who had joined me from X. Noivern was my very first one to trade. She was Japanese, shiny, and had perfect IVs. I picked out an English 6 IV Ditto to pair her with and began hatching. The process was just as tedious as I had come to expect. I lost count of how many eggs I'd hatched, but thankfully I had planned for that. So I had freed up 6 full boxes worth. So each full box meant a full 30 eggs that had been hatched. Egg after egg got me no results, but plenty of IVs, each one looking the same as the last. I guess after a while I got into a rhythm. I might like to point out that I was hunting in the Battle Resort daycare, as the place was well known for being more convenient than Mauville daycare. The NPC in front of the Battle Resort had the ability to change the in-game music for the area, presumably to spice up breeding. It was nearing the 30-egg mark that I noticed something odd, though. I spoke to the woman to change the music, but she said something bizarre. Now, this copy of the game was completely legit. I had purchased it from a licensed producer, brand new and everything. I had played the game hundreds of times, but she'd never said this line of dialogue. Perhaps it was something programmed for breeding? I had never made it this far in the Masuda method before, so maybe? But I don't think so. When I went up and pressed the button on the woman, she said, "I feel a strange disturbance in the atmosphere. Would you like to change the music? It might be good for you." I was a bit confused. Disturbance? Was that a thing? Her normal dialogue was always the same. "Hello, would you like to change the music and enjoy a different atmosphere?" And the options would pop up. This felt delayed. I was a bit thrown off my rhythm, but I shook it off as best I could and hatched the recent batch of eggs before returning to the daycare lad to pick up the next egg. This is where things might sound cheesy or cliche, but I kid you not that this dialogue actually popped up. The boy would usually say, "Oh hey, when we were raising your Pokemon, something amazing happened. It somehow ended up holding an egg. I have no idea where it came from. It's like a total mystery. You've gotta want it, right?" And the options would appear. This time, however, on the first egg, he stopped and delayed his text. It moved slowly, despite the text speed being at the fastest speed. He said, "Your Pokemon was holding an egg. This egg seems different from the others. Do you still want it?" And I was slowly given the option of yes or no. Getting a little excited, I clicked yes. Maybe this meant it was shiny. The camera zoomed in suddenly, greeting me with a cutscene of the boy. His 3D model looked almost afraid, but he passed me an egg before popping up the text, "Be careful." That scared me a little. Was this a glitch? Maybe. I wasn't certain. But I was curious. They say curiosity killed the cat, though. Everything seemed normal afterwards, though the boy looked more standoffish than when interacting and the woman was gone. I shrugged it off, slightly annoyed at the inability to change the music. I figured I'd just hatch the eggs like normal and put them in the box if they weren't shiny like always. Well, the egg was different, there's no doubt there. Not only did it seem to make NPCs standoffish, but it took longer to hatch and seemed to glitch the music as a whole. Maybe it was a bad egg. I'd heard of those. They supposedly glitch out your game when they exist in your game, in the save file. I'd hatched all the other eggs quickly and put them in the box, and at the front of my party was my most trusted mother Pokemon, Volcarona. She was my main mama for hatching eggs, as she had Flame Body, was level 100, and could fend for herself just in case, as well as having been with me all the way from Gen 5. I rode my bike around a bit more before deciding to fly around to see if anything had changed, like in the battle resort. The music had gone mute in all locations, but all NPCs outside of the battle resort seemed their normal happy selves. I played some in-game music from YouTube to spice up the silence. The egg finally hatched when I was wandering Mount Pyre. The Noibat inside did have a little something off about it. I can't put my finger on it, but I think it was watching me. I felt as if it were staring back at me. The text read, "What? The mysterious egg is hatching." And the animation played, followed by, "Mysterious egg hatched into Noibat. Noibat's name is Frisk." It already had a name? I also noticed the lack of congrats in the announcement, as if it were wary and did not think this Pokemon was to be congratulated. Frisk's eyes seemed to follow mine as I pulled open its summary. Name, Frisk. Ability, Frisk. Nature, naughty. Characteristic, likes to bite? Wait, what? Likes to bite? Is that a typo? I have never heard of that characteristic. I shook my head and searched online for this crazy glitch. I felt Frisk's eyes on me while I typed into the search bar. I wanted to know if this was a glitch or whatever the hell it was, because this was getting a little too freaky. I found all the wrong data and eventually turned to contact the business from which I bought the game. They, of course, laughed and sloughed it off as if it were nothing. Just said to wonder trade it off or release it. They didn't believe I'd call over such a trivial thing. I sighed and thanked them before hanging up. I looked back at Frisk and softly whispered to it, "Well, looks like I'll be taking care of you, little guy." That's odd. Did it just nod at me? No, I must be seeing things. I picked the game back up and went to the PC to deposit him. I need to hatch more eggs. Trying to hatch a shiny, so I'm afraid I don't have room for you, little buddy. I clicked deposit, clicked on Frisk, and chose to send him to box 2. The most recent batch of hatchlings were there. I stopped for a moment. Did I just hear a growl? No, it couldn't have been. I clicked on yes. Frisk refuses to leave the party. You deposited Volcarona. What? What was that? Is Frisk trying to pull what Pikachu did in Pokemon Yellow? I tried again, once more. Frisk refuses to leave the party. You deposited egg. Again? No, get in the box, Frisk. Frisk definitely looked angry now. I tried again. Stop trying to abandon me. I will not leave your side. What? I stared at the text, baffled. What do you mean? I need Volcarona for hatching. I need my Flame Body user, I exclaimed in anger at the screen. Then I'll be your Flame Body. What does that even mean? Noibat can't have Flame Body. I can be anything you need. Please do not abandon me like my brothers and sisters. I couldn't help but feel guilty at that comment. I sighed. I was trying to deposit him in the Safari PC, but I reluctantly agreed to let the little bat stay. I would never abandon any of my babies in this PC. While it is true there are far too many for me to care for, I want to trade them to new homes until they find the right home for them. You promise you'll never leave me? I'll let you remain in my party as long as you can meet the standards I require. I must have looked like a crazy person in reality. I was talking to this tiny screen like an imaginary friend. Talk about embarrassing. Fair enough. I love you, Mom. The text somehow managed to warm the chilled air of the game. and everything returned to normal. The music, the NPCs in the battle resort returned to their normal selves, and everything was normal again. With the exception of receiving in-game texts at random from Frisk. And each time I'd have to respond through the mic, or he'd think I was ignoring him and get upset and ruin the game again. This bat might be battier than I thought. I did everything I could to keep Frisk healthy and happy. Whenever he was affected by a status, he'd whimper and cry through the speakers to get to a Pokemon Center to help him. He became like a true child of mine. He called me Mom and spoke in a soft, childlike tone. I could hear his sounds, but not his speech. I grew closer and closer to the baby bat. Frisk was actually quite cute and lovable as long as he was happy. I decided to play with him in Pokemon Ami and was super surprised to hear his actual voice. "Mama!" he cried, reaching his tiny 3D bat claws towards me. I couldn't help but feel warm and fuzzy and pet him as much as he liked. He was so cute! I'd feed him until he was full and pet him until he told me to stop. I'd play with him until he told me he was tired and hungry. I had made sure he was always happy. Then came the day when he evolved. My little baby was now a full-grown Noivern, just like his mother. He was normal-colored, though, so he wasn't as popular or fussed over by others, but I loved him to death no matter what. One day, he spoke to me quietly in Ami. "Mother, when you turn off the game, do you forget about me?" The question caught me off guard, and I looked at him and shook my head. "Are you lying?" I do have to do other things, but please understand, I'd never forget about you. I have schoolwork and friends, but I'd never forget about you, Frisk. You've grown so much and made me so proud," I responded, and he beamed with pride. I was 16 when I met Frisk, and I was 19 when I dropped out of the Pokemon craze. For 3 years, Frisk was my baby, my pride and joy, my only friend. I got married and had a son at the age of 26. When my son turned 10, I passed on all my games and consoles to him. And Frisk was still there. My son loved Frisk, but Frisk was furious. The sounds he made scared my son. I scolded Frisk through the mic, but Frisk didn't listen. I took the DS and sat my son down with a different game before walking to a different room and bringing Frisk into a me. I got a good look at my baby and gasped. Frisk looked starved. He was so thin you could see his ribs. His teeth had decayed. His fur was dull. His wings were weak. And his sounds were vicious. "Mother, why did you abandon me?" I heard the desperation in his voice. His pitiful cries. "You promised." I felt horrible. I silently tried to comfort him with the stylus, but he bit my hand and I stared in shock. "You left me to starve. All alone. Where did you go? Why did you leave?" His cries sounded distraught, but they weren't as loud and powerful as usual. He pleaded for answers, but I had none. How could I tell him I left because I'd lost interest in the game? It's no reason to abandon him. His eyes bulged from his head. His skin stretched over his bones. He glared at me with those sharp eyes. All warmth was drained from my body. I couldn't stand seeing him like this. I couldn't choke out any words to express my feelings. He took my silence as insult and forced the hand to appear on the screen, usually indicating interaction. "You abandoned me, starved me. Now I need something to eat. Feed me," he demanded ferociously, and I nodded weakly, quickly tapping on the Pokepuffs, but he turned his head to them. "No, I need meat." I froze. "Meat?" He seemed to grin at my shock and fear. He stood up weakly and chomped down on the interactive hand, devouring it and leaving a red stain on the screen. "You shall never touch me again," he growled. "From now on, You are nothing more than a heartless trainer, like all the others, breeding for your own selfish intent, simply to then abandon us all and leave us like this. Will you not allow redemption? I asked briefly, to which he looked up. I never wanted this. The boy from before, he's my second son, second to you. If you will allow this, I'd like you to care for him, and allow him to care for you like I couldn't. I looked down, and Frisk met my gaze, as if trying to read my sincerity. I do not deserve a second chance, but give your brother a chance. Frisk sat still, watching my every movement. Answer me! Answer me, damn it! He seemed to give in, hearing the desperation in my own voice. Very well. I will allow this child the ability to care for me, but no other hands may touch my screen. I was so happy to hear that. I had failed to care for Frisk, but I sat down with my son, Josh, and introduced him to Frisk. Josh, this game is very important. You must never abandon it or lose it. When you're older, you must pass it on, okay? Josh was 10, but he was old enough to understand the tone of my voice. He nodded and petted the dragon bat. Hello, Frisk. My name is Josh. You look hungry. Do you want a cupcake? Yes, I would enjoy that, Josh, Frisk responded, surprising and impressing the young boy. Josh quickly became fascinated with Frisk, never leaving without the DS and the game, and never failing to care for Frisk. Frisk changed my life. After seeing what had happened to him, I realized just how much that it meant to care and never abandon. I opened a children's adoption service. I call it Faith and Hope Children's Home. I foster kids now and help them find their proper homes. Occasionally, I see Frisk glance over from the DS at me and smile. That's how I know he's proud of me too.